Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to the final part of our series of videos focusing on mysterious cases involving missing campers. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, be sure to check those out first. We'll leave a link in the description below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this. It really helps us to continue building the channel. With that out of the way, here is part 3 of 3 mysterious cases of missing campers. On March 19th, 2020, 74-year-old Russell Hill and 73-year-old Carol Clay set off for a camping trip in the Australian state of Victoria. The trip was supposed to last a little more than a week and would see the pair venture deep into some of the state's rugged high country to an area of remote bushland called Unsolved Valley, roughly 400 kilometers away from Melbourne. Though this type of camping was not for the uninitiated, Russell was an avid and experienced outdoorsman who knew the terrain extremely well. He had formerly worked in the area as a logger and had made frequent trips there for camping in the past. Russell picked up Carol from her home in Pakenham, and the two made their way east and then north before spending the night camping in Lacola. The next day, they finished the rest of their journey, completing the final 23-kilometer leg of the trip along the Zika Spur logging track. The track is supposedly rough enough that even four-wheel drive vehicles normally can't travel more than 10 kilometers per hour on it. Sometime after setting up camp, Russell contacted his wife Robin via high-frequency radio at Wanangata Station. This was a ritual of his. No matter how far out he was, he always made daily contact via radio with either friends or family. Other than the fact that he mentioned having radio transmission issues, nothing out of the ordinary seemed to be going on. All of that would change the next day, when at approximately 2 in the afternoon, a passerby discovered Russell and Carol's campsite had been completely burned to the ground. The fire was suspicious in and of itself, but what was even more alarming was that there was no sign of Russell or Carol anywhere. Days passed, but neither of them was ever heard from again. Almost immediately, authorities were forced to come to grips with what a monumental task searching for the missing pair would be. Though the area near the campsite in Wanangata Valley was in relatively clear terrain, it quickly developed into thick bushland on all sides, and the landscape was nearly impassable. Russell and Carol had already been missing for 10 days before authorities really managed to ramp up search and rescue efforts. Even then, this effort needed to be temporarily abandoned after weather conditions took a turn for the worse. A second search effort was soon organized in mid-April, but it also failed to turn up any sign of Russell or Carol. At that time, police admitted that they were unhappy with the results of their searches, and made appeals to the public for any information they might have related to the disappearances. The story quickly captured national attention, and as the first 3 months of the case passed, several interesting developments in the investigation made their way out to the public. First, it was learned that in addition to Russell and Carol's cell phones, police were also unable to find a drone that Russell was believed to have in his possession at the time he went missing. He had reportedly purchased the high-end DJI Mavic 1 drone shortly before embarking on the camping trip, and was supposedly excited to test it out. Secondly, it was learned that while testing on the remnants of the fire were inconclusive as to whether the campsite had been burned down deliberately or accidentally, there were several suspicious items found in the ashes. These included chairs and a gas container. In later interviews, those that knew Russell found the burned-out campsite to be particularly troubling. They said that he never would have burned it down deliberately, and that an accident also seemed highly unlikely since he never would have walked away from the campsite leaving a fire unattended. But it was the final piece of information learned early on that drove many subsequent headlines. Russell's wife had no idea that he'd been camping with Carol, and it was believed that the two had been having a long-time affair. In the minds of many, this scandalous aspect of the story would come to define the case. As far as the official investigation was concerned, though, it seemed that there were 3 main theories being explored. That Russell and Carol had suffered some sort of accident, that they had met with some sort of foul play, or that they had indeed planned the trip to fake their deaths and run away together. Despite being the most salacious, this third explanation never seemed all that credible to investigators. Russell and Carol were both in their 70s, and both seemed happy in their respective social lives. Both had families and were grandparents, and neither had touched their money since they went missing. Carol had also recently moved into a new house. None of it seemed to add up. The explanation of an accident, while more believable, also appeared highly questionable. Given Russell's level of familiarity with the area, it seemed unlikely that he would get lost, or that he and Carol would wander off from their campsite at all. Additionally, if something had happened to them, why hadn't they simply radioed for help? Though this could be potentially explained by the fact that Russell admitted that he was having radio transmission issues the day before, there were still other details at the campsite that do not make sense. Perhaps the biggest of these is that if Russell and Carol had suffered some sort of accident, why had they left Russell's truck behind? Though the outside of the vehicle had sustained damage from the fire that had burned the rest of the campsite, when authorities arrived at the scene during their initial search, the vehicle appeared to be working perfectly fine. Disturbingly, this left foul play as the most reasonable explanation behind the disappearances in the minds of investigators. However, the exact nature of that foul play remains a mystery. Over the last few months, there has been a constant flow of news reports about the investigation, most of which have either reiterated the beliefs of investigators that an unknown third party was involved in Russell and Carol's disappearance, or else focused on some new piece of potential evidence. In early March of 2021, there were hopes that the missing drone had been recovered when one was handed in to police, but it was quickly determined that it did not belong to Russell Hill. Around the same time, authorities announced that they were looking to identify the driver of a white dual-cab four-wheel drive utility vehicle that had been seen near a small suspension bridge over the Wanagata River the day before Russell and Carol had disappeared. This was relatively close to where the pair had been camping, and was the only vehicle police said was unaccounted for in the area. They also said that the driver may have been accompanied by another person at the time. While the unknown people have not been officially linked to the disappearances, police have claimed that they could have been the last people to have seen Russell and Carol alive. In April, another strange development in the case was reported, when 2 shovels were taken into evidence as part of the investigation. The shovels were found off of Great Alpine Road near Mount Hotham, after police widened their searches to include that area. The shovels were sent off for forensic testing, though it is not clear what their significance was to investigators, as just as quickly as they were found, it was reported that they may not hold the answers authorities were initially hoping for. So where does this leave us? At the present time, numerous reports have emerged suggesting police believe they are close to solving the case, and that they have several persons of interest they are looking into. As they have not yet released any of those details, right now, we are left to simply speculate. While there is again the possibility that the disappearances had something to do with Russell and Carol's affair, there are other compelling theories that we came across in our research. The most interesting of these theories was covered by 60 Minutes Australia and concerns Russell's drone. The theory goes that perhaps Russell uncovered some sort of criminal activity that he wasn't supposed to see, possibly illegal deer hunting, and those responsible went to extreme lengths to make sure there wouldn't be any witnesses. While the case remains unsolved, we hope that police are correct, and that they will soon crack the case. Until then, we will be eagerly watching the headlines, looking for new updates. That brings us to the end of our list. Do you know of any other cases like this that you think we should check out? Tell us about them in the comments section below. As always, if you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest releases. Thank you for watching.